Hey, welcome to another Modern Musicking show. Today we have a deep dive with Annie Shea, who does electronic music here, works with the Exploded Ensemble, and does a bunch of other really cool stuff. We're going to also hear from the CMU Philharmonic. We've got a music history moment that you're going to really dig, and I get my next oboe lesson. Thanks for checking it out. Today on Jacob Random Holmes, featuring Jacob Randall Holmes. Jacob, would you please play me a song that makes me happy? Hey, today we're talking with Annie Shea, one of my colleagues here at Carnegie Mellon University. Annie, thank you so much for sitting down and talking. What is it that you do here?
I teach here.
You teach a lot of things.
Yeah, so I teach. At the moment, I'm teaching the Harmony 1 and Harmony 2 classes, and also I teach for the Ideate Network. So at the moment, I'm teaching experimental sound synthesis and co-directing Exploded Ensemble.
Okay, let's unpack a little bit of that. In a Harmony 1 or a Harmony 2 class, what age is the student? I mean, what year is the student, and what do you cover?
So I think I get a lot of freshmen because I think it's one of the core required courses they have to take. So I'll say maybe about 80% of the class is first year students, and then I get people who do it later, more senior students, but sometimes I also get grad students just want to take it for fun. So it's a good mix of people.
And what are you covering in a class like that?
No, so we cover kind of diatonic harmony from kind of 17th century to when just before tonality broke in the 19th century. Yeah, that's kind of 200 odd years of music that we try to understand the harmonic language of. Yeah.
So you teach a couple of courses in Ideate, and you mentioned the first was experimental sound synthesis.
That's
is that right?
Yeah.
And what do you do? What kind of student ends up in that class?
Oh, it always changes. So I've taught this class twice now. So I get a lot of music tech students or audio engineering students, but also I get like computer science and engineering students, and sometimes I think some drama school students come as well. So as in Ideate course, we always attract these students who are more into interdisciplinary things. So yes.
That's one of my favorite parts about the Ideate is that it really draws students from all over campus.
Yeah.
And so even selfishly for the music students, I'm just excited that they get to interface in class with non-music majors, because usually you just sort of get in the music major track and you just see the same people for 4 years, and this is a great way that we've figured out how to get them playing in the same sandbox.
Yeah.
So what kinds of things do you do in that class?
So we learn about how to put sound together, but also through more like a technological electronic music lens. And so at the moment, the end of semester project is usually a large scale group sound installation somewhere off campus. So in the past few years, we've worked with Phipps Conservatory, and this past spring, we collaborated with the Carnegie Library in Oakland. So it became this installation that has some VR, augmented reality portion to it, and it's a collaboration we had with an animation class run by a professor in the School of Art, Johannes de Jong. So yeah, so it became kind of one of those collaborative interdisciplinary class by itself, but also expand outwards to collaborate with other classes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
The other ID8 class, and ID8 stands for Integrative Design, Arts, and Technology. And that's this great cross-section of classes that are open to any student on campus. And the other one that you mentioned is the Exploded Ensemble, which I know something about, but why don't you explain what the Exploded Ensemble is and does?
We do explosive music. No, that's not really. So we basically it's a music ensemble, but we do electroacoustic music, and very often it turns into kind of multidisciplinary or media-driven kind of performance. So all the students, they are here to develop pieces, develop works that they want to present for the concerts that we kind of assembled for each semester. And they're usually of an ambitious, large-scale format. For example, we've done concerts in limestone caves that covers thousands of numbers of football stadiums. It's a space where students come in, make music, and also create music using different tools, different technology, and then also with different disciplines.
So do you have to have a big background in technology to be in the Exploded Ensemble?
Not necessarily. I mean, a lot of people come to us because they are curious about what their own practice can be extended to. And so, of course, in class, we'll train them we'll teach them the necessary equipment. We'll say, for example, how do you amplify yourself? How do you use the mixing board? How do you work with somebody who knows how to manipulate your sound if you're not doing the electronic manipulation yourself? Or do you want to program something that you can use by yourself? And so it becomes a very fluid kind of class. And so it's really focusing on what the students want to make in the framework of the concert that we programmed. And so, it's very flexible in that way.
Well, and so this is your classroom. This is the media lab. And so this is where it all takes place. And I think we're going to have you give us a tour of it here in a second. But I wanted to ask you how, you're a musician as well, an artist as well. So how do you describe to people how you make music and art?
So I'm trained as a composer, and so I think that's like the one title. I think it covers a lot of what I do. So I started as a pretty traditional kind of traditionally trained composer with writing notes on page and all that, and but eventually I'm very interested in sound in general. So I didn't think that just by writing music on page was enough for me. So I started to look at what are some other ways of thinking about music, that's through different disciplines or through technological augmentation. And so now my practice is focusing on electroacoustic medium, but also I work a lot with musicians and have pieces performed by people in places. And so so that's kind of what I do. And I've worked a lot in kind of collaboration with installation artists, dancers, and so forth. So it became a bit more multifaceted.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I just have one more question. And you can kind of handle this any which way you want. If you could go back in time and advise yourself, this is aimed at younger, high school age musicians. So if you could go back in time and advise you as a younger musician, or if you were starting today, what advice would you give yourself or someone who's thinking about going down this road?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
I think really just to follow your curiosity, really. A lot of times we hear, yes, follow your passion, whatnot. But really, if something you're curious about and you want to find out what it does to, what it does to your art, what to your own thinking, I think it's a really worthwhile, or it's a path that's really worthwhile following.
That's great advice.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking.
It's
Annie
a
Shea.
pleasure.
See ya.
Let's learn to play.
So now on Lance Learns to Play, last time you'll probably remember I learned to assemble an oboe. And now I'm going to get to experience the joy of an oboe reed. Hannah, what's the deal?
with the oboe reed.
Yeah. So now you've got them in water. What is
I
this?
have
Just a
them in
little
water.
plastic.
This is just a film canister.
Oh.
If you can find
Do they
those
still
these
make
days.
those? Yeah.
Well, my mom had about 20, so I took them all.
Your mom's by my age.
She sure is, yeah.
But they do still make them.
Do they? No, there
Probably
you go.
buy them on eBay. You can use any small cup, shot glass, plastic
And
container.
we're gonna leave them in water. Why?
I only let them in there for, was that about 20 seconds?
Okay.
'Cause they won't play when they're dry.
Okay. Okay.
So if I were to pull one out that's dry,
So
it
you have to
takes
work crazy
so
hard.
much more work
Yeah.
because all the blades are just dry,
I
and
see.
you want it to vibrate against itself.
I see. So the reeds are So the oboe. Let's slow down for a second. The oboe is a double reed.
Yes.
And so instead of last season we did saxophone, which was
Mm-hmm.
a single reed instrument. Now this is a double reed in that there are two reeds that meet.
It starts out like this,
Oh my gosh. Oh, cool. May I hold it?
and you create the fold, the opening part, by folding that in half.
Oh, really? Okay.
And putting it on the cork and then cutting it.
And do you wet this when you're doing that?
Yeah,
So
it
it's
has to
always
soak.
if it's wet, then it won't. Okay. And then you. So I'm sorry. You fold it in half, and then you. Is the cork come in a cylinder like this? Is a cylindrical shape?
The corks are called staples.
Okay.
And it's a completely separate entity
I
that you
see.
have to buy.
And you buy a staple, and the metal part. There's a metal
It has
lining
a
on
metal
the
lining
inside,
inside it.
and that's the part that goes into the oboe. The metal
So-
surrounded by the cork. Oh, look at there.
The cork part is what goes into the well.
And the well
and
is
the
the
well
opening.
is the very top part.
Okay.
Here. And then each reed has brass or silver metal.
Is there
and
a reason for the two metals?
Yeah, the brass is going to be a thinner metal than the silver, so it'll make like there'll be less in the way of the vibrations essentially.
Oh, okay.
So if this was thicker metal, it would take more. You would have to scrape more off
I see.
for the same vibrations.
I see. So how many tools do you need in order to make a reed? So you need a knife of some sort, obviously. You need water, so you need the raw materials
You need the cane,
and the thread.
cane, thread, staples. There's something called a mandrel, which holds this part.
Oh, I
So
see.
that you can actually have a better.
Anchors it in place so that you can.
It does. It gives you more to hold on to.
Okay.
Because this is kind of hard.
Yeah.
Like, hands are so big, you just need something else to hold on to.
Yeah.
So you hold it kind of like a baton
I gotcha.
so that you can wrap around it.
I see.
You need that. You need a ruler.
A ruler.
Ruler.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Yeah, sorry.
No, my
I
bad.
can't say
I
vowels very well.
misunderstood. Oh, okay. And what measurement? Like, what are we going for?
We're going for. It's in millimeters.
Okay.
The whole reed should be about 72.5 before you do anything to it.
I see.
So mine is only 70
Okay.
and a little bit, which you can't measure. That one is definitely longer if you wanted to measure that one.
Well, it's similar, right? It's just over 70, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And you're starting at 72-ish just because this is a reductive process. You're going to take cane away until
Yeah,
you get
and
it to
it'll
the
get
shape
shorter.
that you
You
want.
give yourself a little extra room.
I gotcha. So, well, now here's a question. You get on an airplane and
Yeah.
you pack this with you. What do you do?
I pack it just like this,
Mm-hmm.
and I put it in my suitcase to check it.
Check it. Yeah.
You cannot
Because
take
other
it on the
than the
plane.
razor, could you take all of the rest of the tools? What's this tool?
The only things I could take actually on the plane, I think, without it being checked, probably actually be this
Just the ruler. At what age do most oboe players start playing the oboe? What's a ballpark?
I would say probably close to late middle school,
Okay.
7th, 8th grade, sometimes 9th grade.
And then at what age would you recommend someone start learning to make their own reeds?
That depends on how mature they are as a person. So with boys, it tends to be later.
Insert joke here.
Than
Yeah.
girls.
I'd argue if I disagreed. Okay, but yeah.
It's just, that's just how it is.
So these are very persnickety
They
beasts.
sure are. Yeah.
Gotcha. So that's part of what you're signing up for if you're an oboist, right? A lot of futzing.
I didn't know that when I was in
Really?
4th grade, but that is exactly what you're signing up for. And
Awesome.
if that's dry, we can dip it right back in the water.
Anything else I should know about the reed? offhand before we start trying to play?
That it's very fragile. We don't want to nick our teeth
Oh.
into the reed because it will break it.
Well, there you go. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Hannah. That's everything you need to know about an oboe reed. And now, another music history moment.
Oh hey, what's good, fam? I'm gonna tell you about Clara Schumann. Clara Schumann was one of the most prominent women composers of the late 19th century. She did have a very famous husband, Robert Schumann. However, she was also a very, very talented pianist. So talented, in fact, that Brahms had a bit of an infatuation for her, and there's a rumor they got a little hanky-panky. Clara Schumann had so many wonderful compositions, and she's one of my favorite composers.
How about that?
Stimmen. Und freudenvollere Freude, schöne Götterfunken, Tochter aus Elysion. Wir Tränen Feuer trunken, himmlische dein Heiligtum. Deine Zauberbinde wieder, was die Mutter streng geteilt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder vor dein sachte Flügelbein. Deine Zauberbinde wieder, was die Mutter streng geteilt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder vor dein sachte in der große Burgelungen eines Freundes Freund zu sein, wer ein hohes Weib verrungen, mische seinen Jubel ein, ja, wer auch nur eine Wiese, seine Tate Ehre ruft, und wer's nie geglaubt erschiene, weil es sich aus diesem Buch
Okay, so this is the Media Lab, and if you've never been here, you really should, because this is one of the best places on campus. And so this is also where a lot of the IDEA classes are taught. So as you can see, it's like a whole wall of currently very meticulously organized wall of equipment. We have all these speakers who kind of travels with Exploded Ensemble, and we go off-site to do our performances. And then we have just a lot of cabling that will allow us to do off-site performances. And here is our toy rack, which means this is all our synthesizers and our keyboard instruments, our drum pads, drum machines. These are quite reserved. Well, not really reserved, but these are mostly used by Exploded Ensemble. And so yeah, so this is kind of all of the rest of it, and these are special collections of what are they called? The chess sets. The Go chess sets. That's right. And they have been used as musical instruments in the past through electronic manipulation. And then we have more. There are lights that we use for performances, yoga mats. I don't know why they're here, but I'm sure for good purpose, and a lot of microphones and more delicate equipments that we have reserved for people who actually know how to use them. And a lot of times that means members of the ensemble who we teach them how to use these things. And so the rest of it kind of set up like a free working space, and these tables are all whiteboard tables, for example. So in my classes, sometimes the students will break into groups and they will work out their plans or their concepts on these boards. And so it has a very flowy dynamic in this room. And which kind of encourage collaboration between the students. And so we also have 8-channel speakers set up, which means we can play multi-channel music here. We can test out ambisonic, which means it's like a 360-degree sonic experience. So we've been working on some of those things in class with our students, just kind of to see the different ways we interpret and perceive sounds. There are also beautiful disco-like balls. They are here for amusement and definitely practical use. And of course, everything here is wireless, so if you need to project things, usually we use Apple TV. Everything is hooked up really nicely. And so this is currently in, at the beginning of semester, very clean condition, and we try to keep it that way. But it's a communal space, so everybody takes the responsibility and keep it clean. And lastly, there's a bunch of shelves, and I want to point out that the section has kind of blocked it off with the tape, and it has very clear writing says if it's only reserved for people who take my class. If you don't, if you use it and you're not in my class, the ghost of Carnegie will come and haunt you. I don't know who put it there. Actually, I do know who put it there, and I think that's my favorite feature of this room.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. If you want to reach us with questions or comments, you can figure out all the ways to do that by clicking on any of those links and wherever you're watching this thing. We've had a great time putting these together and hope you find them useful as well. Thanks for watching.